it's been a while, but I got a bunch of requests for a video about how I got my EDS diagnosis. It took quite a long time and a lot of hassle. I did martial arts for a long time. I started when I was, must have been 12, 11 or 12. No, I must have been 11 when I started. Maybe even 10, God. But I was very, very bendy. It was obvious from the start that I was bendier than anyone else. I did ended up taking a break after the summer before grade 9. That's when the real problem started. I guess I had kept my muscle mass up pretty well and doing an awful lot of exercising. So I took a break and things were going okay for a little bit. And then I started gym in second semester. I had gone from being able to do 100 push-ups, no problem. I used to be able to do as many as I wanted, to I couldn't even do one push-up. I couldn't run anymore. And then my knees started dislocating every day. It was all the time. I bought a cane. I was walking to school on a cane all the time, which, let me tell you, like, you think high school is bad for you. Try being in high school, making a bunch of new friends when you're the only kid with a cane. That was really fun. And I was having like a really hard time in gym. Like, I couldn't do anything. But I ended up going to my doctor and complaining about how much pain I was in. I couldn't run anymore. I could barely walk some days. And I was like really upset. He sent me for an x-ray on my knee and did like a blood test, but didn't really help me. He told me he doubted I was dislocating anything because I was walking around still, and he's like, oh, if you had dislocated that joint, you wouldn't be walking. I'm like, well, I'm not walking when it happens. And then as time went on, I just kind of got used to it and started, I just get back up and walk it off. He refused to believe there's a problem. The x-ray came back negative because obviously there's no problem with my bone. It's the soft tissue that's the problem. He was absolutely no help to me at all. He's like, there's nothing in the one blood test I bothered doing. Nothing showed up on the one x-ray I did on one joint. So it's nothing. It's all in your head. Stop talking to me about it. In grade 10, my depression got really, really bad. I mean, I'd been suicidal for a while, but it started getting really bad. I went to guidance, and he sent me to my doctor, the same stupid doctor who didn't believe me before. And I go in, and he's diagnosed me with depression. Obviously, I was unable to get any therapy because I lived in a small town at the time, and the only therapists available were either private therapists, which wouldn't take anyone under 16. There was a 2-year waiting list for anything public. So I had no options at all for therapy. And to this day, I've never had therapy. I've never had the option. I'm okay, but it took me a lot longer to get through some of this stuff than it would have been otherwise. Depression was getting sort of better. Like, I still have PTSD. It's getting re-triggered every single day. I stabilized. I stopped being suicidal, but I was still upset all the time. I went to university, and my depression got so much better when I was not living at home anymore. And I started noticing that I was getting really, really dizzy every time I stood up. I guess I had always been like a little bit slow after standing up, but it was getting worse. And at this point, like, I was getting like tinnitus and like ringing in my ears, and I wouldn't be able to see very well. I went to my doctor, and he just said, oh, it's just orthostatic hypotension. That's normal for girls your age. Like, it's fine. Just don't worry about it and push your feet against the floor before you stand up, which I can't do because every time I wake up in the morning, my ankles are dislocated, but okay, doctor. I also went to see a chiropractor kind of on a whim. There was a like little posture thingy set up in the university mall. So I go, and she's like trying to adjust the little thing. And she's like, your back is so bad that I can't actually like adjust it to how bad your back is. She did a great job giving me like exercises to do to strengthen the muscles on my legs, to sort of compensate for stuff. And that was the first time someone told me that my tendons were really loose. And I Googled it. The only thing I saw that would have connective tissue disorders is, at the time, it was like benign hypermobility syndrome and EDS. That's all I found. But the EDS article at the time was really focused on vascular EDS. It was talking about like organ problems and rupturing aortas and all this stuff you hear about people with vascular EDS. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be that person who goes on WebMD and jumps to conclusions that I'm dying because of some stupid thing the internet said. So I kind of put it out of my head. I'm like, okay, my tendons are loose. Whatever. I always knew I was hypermobile. It's fine. I ended up being able to stop walking with my cane. Everything was like so much better. But then she ended up, after the York strike, moving to Vancouver to be with her family. My second year of university was great. I went the whole year without my cane. I did sports till the end of the school year, where I'm at a soccer practice, which, why I was playing soccer, I have no freaking idea. But I was in goal, and I went to go this way to block the ball, and my leg's over here, and it didn't come with me. I sort of landed in the splits, and my leg sort of bent at a really weird angle, and I walked it off, and it was fine, until I didn't realize that you have to use those muscles or they atrophy. I was not like the brightest person. I just figured like, oh, I'm biking to work every day for the summer, so it should be fine. But no, it was the hip flexor I ended up tearing, and it still atrophied. I ended up having a lot of pain from that. Just limping and back on the cane again. The winter of third year, I had a severe like depression and PTSD relapse, and I was in a lot of pain and wasn't doing any of my schoolwork at all. In the summer, I moved in with a friend because I realized what was causing my depression was my mother and PTSD. I finally figured it out, so I just didn't want to go back home. Found a job at a Value Village, working in the back, tagging clothes, which, again, terrible idea. I ended up, in my fourth year of university, being in a lot of pain from working at this Value Village, walking into the drop-in clinic, and they started sending me to a bunch of appointments, try and do blood tests, figure out what the hell's going on. They believed that there was something wrong with me, which is the first time anyone had actually listened to me before. And they checked everything they could think of that was treatable and curable. And they said, it's none of these things. We've ruled them all out, so we're going to send you to a rheumatologist. And then at this point, I was failing school again because I couldn't, I was bedridden all the time. I ended up fired from my job for how often I was calling in sick or just simply not showing up, because I had a basement apartment and a really shitty phone that had no service in my shitty basement apartment. Because at this point I was living on my own. I wasn't even with my friend. And then my mom came and drove me to my appointment. So we went in and I got a preliminary diagnosis of EDS, sent me for a bunch of x-rays just to figure out how my joints were doing, see if I had any wear. And then she went on maternity leave and left me. So I went back to that really awful family doctor of mine to just try and get a referral to a new rheumatologist. He gave me no help at all. He refused to even treat me without me being seen by a geneticist first, which was a 2-year wait. And he wouldn't treat me for 2 years. He ended up sending me a letter to a rheumatologist, kind of begrudgingly. When I finally got the letter back from this new rheumatologist, all it said on it was, if what you have is EDS, it's incurable, so there's no fucking point. Good luck. He just said, I can't help you, so there's no point. In the summer, a bit later, I ended up getting a friend of mine who was a personal trainer to do some research and try and give me some exercises, which got me out of bed and able to walk fine. I got hired at a movie theater. I wasn't able to keep doing my exercises because of the malnutrition. I couldn't. And then working at this job, standing in melted butter all day, was obliterating my knees. And in 2013, I moved to a different apartment to save more money. I switched from working popcorn to working the coffee frozen yogurt stand. I was walking around less, lifting less. My legs stabilized a bit. I started going to the local sex club, which has a heated pool. and I was exercising regularly in a way that was safe for me. I had just gotten a new girlfriend who had been dating my boyfriend. Like, we were still together, we were polyamorous, and my new girlfriend got me a new family doctor who heard her talking about how I was doing and my problems and said, she needs to see me, she needs a doctor who's like not terrible. She sent me to see a new rheumatologist at the local hospital. I got tons of tests, everything went so much better. It was actually treating me for what was wrong with me. In 2014, in February, I saw a geneticist. I got confirmed and then told me she suspected I had gastroparesis. In the spring, I ended up going to the hospital with a racing heart and chest pain. My heart rate was like 140 for an entire weekend and wouldn't stop. And I felt like I was having a panic attack. Turns out I ended up having POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is a form of dysautonomia. So when I stand up, my heart races. And then around Christmas, my knee fell apart again because obviously I'm not destined to have a working left leg. I went to the hospital for my knee. They did an x-ray with me lying down, which is incredibly unhelpful. Told me it wasn't dislocated when it was very clearly dislocated because I could bend it 45 degrees sideways. I knew it was dislocated, but she wasn't having it. And then they sent me to a fracture clinic just to double check I hadn't torn any ligaments or something, if that was the problem. It's funny because the resident said, oh yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with your bone's fine, your ligaments are fine. Maybe some muscles are torquing it the wrong way. And I told him I had EDS, and he was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You'll be fine. You just need some physio to strengthen the muscles and you'll be fine. And then the actual doctor walked in. The resident had me just do bendy finger things and like asked me about stuff. The doctor had me, while in a fracture clinic on crutches, stand up and try and touch my toes. And I'm like, well, but I'm here because I have a suspected dislocated knee. Like, why are you... And then he like grabbed my knee and was like wrenching it in different positions. And like, I'm resisting because it hurts. And he's like, I don't think you've ever dislocated this knee before. And I'm like, I've been dislocating it since I was 14. Like, frequently. He agreed to send me to physio, which is not covered. So that was like $30 a pop every 3 weeks. The physio really helped. And then I suddenly couldn't do it anymore. I'm like,